Hi everyone, welcome to the new lesson. New lesson is soil resources. So here in 10th standard we will be studying mostly about the human aspects of geography. Geography can be broadly divided into two, that is the physical geography and the human geography. The physical geography studies about the physical features, and human geography we will study more about human life and the things related to human life. And in 10th standard we will be concentrating more on human aspects of geography. So here in this lesson also, that is soil, also we will be studying more about its human aspects, how it helps the economy of the country, right, and the people. Now, see the name of the lesson, it is soil resources. You have another one lesson, that is water resources. Then you have mineral resources, right? So in all these lessons, we are studying all these features as resources, not as a physical entity. So let's see what the term resource means. Resource is very simple. Anything, I think I told you many times in the class, anything that is useful for human beings can be called as resources, right? Anything, say for example, the screen that you are using at present to see this video, that's also a resource for us, right? So here in this lesson we will study soil as a resource, as a useful entity. Now let's see the definition of the term soil. Soil, as you all know, it's a mixture of a number of things like organic matter, minerals, right, moisture, etc. So soil is a mixture of organic matter, minerals, gases, liquids, and organisms that together support life. Or other words, in other words, you can call it as like define it like this: a thin layer of loose mixture of small rock particles and rotting organic matter that covers much of the world's land surface. Rock particles, right? I think almost all of you are sure about the formation of the soil. So most of the soil are formed by the breaking down of rocks. So this is again an apt term, right? Now soil supports forests, grasslands, crops, and almost all creatures living on Earth. Not right. I mean not on Earth, on the surface of the Earth. Now moving on to the next, formation of soil. We don't need to go deeply into this topic. It's very simple. Soil is most of the time formed by the breaking down of parent rock. Parent rock, in its original place, starts breaking down into smaller particles and again into smaller and smaller particles over time, and it takes millions of years of time sometimes, and slowly changes into the tiny particles and forms a layer on the top, and that is what is called as soil. So the forces of nature, chemical and organic changes, and time affect the formation of soil, and soil slowly evolves over millions of years of time. Now this one is very clear. Soil is formed from an existing rock, and those rocks are called as the parent rocks, or we can call it as the bed rocks. So the bed rocks or the parent rocks breaks down into smaller particles and finally forms soil. And soil constitutes all these things, right? The main constituents are humus. Humus content, it may not be seen in all type of soil and everywhere, right? But it is found in most of the soils. Now, humus is nothing but it's the decomposed vegetative and animal remains. Then, other than humus, soil used to have minerals like silica, then clay, sand, silt, etc. Alright, I think it's a mistake again. Right? Then, one common term that is always heard in relation with soil is soil erosion, the removal of topsoil. Right? It affects us because one of the major activity, that is agriculture, fully depends on soil. So soil erosion will lead to reduction in the fertility of the soil, and it will affect the agriculture. So soil erosion is another common term, and we will be studying in detail about soil erosion in this lesson itself. So soil erosion can be caused because of these three main reasons: faulty agricultural practices, overgrazing, and deforestation. But we can overcome all these through scientific methods. Now, another one term to study is soil fertility. Soil fertility is nothing but it is the strength of the soil to support plant life, right? And a fertile soil will have these following characteristics. It will have sufficient amount of moisture content, that is water content, then sufficient depth so that plant roots can penetrate down and collect nutrients and water it required. Then it will be rich in nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and there are many more. But these are the basic nutrients that are required for the growth of plants. Then, of course, soil will have, or fertile soil will have, organic matter, the humus content that will add to the fertility. right? So it is not necessary that all the soil are fertile, right? But uh, we will be studying about some of the important soil which are mostly fertile. Now, soil fertility can be improved by adding fertilizers. Certain type of soil does not have certain minerals. So those missing minerals can be added by adding uh, fertilizers to the soil, and that in that way we can increase the fertility of the soil. Now, classification of the soil. We can divide the soil into two categories, or we can classify soil on two bases. First is on the base of location, right? On the base of location of formation, and second is on the basis of the origin and the formation of the soil. So on the base of location, we have two divisions or two subtypes: residual soil and transported soil. And based on the origin, we have so many, but we are studying only these four main types: alluvial, black, red, and laterite soil. Now we'll see the first one, that is first division based on location. So the first one type of soil is residual soil. It is also called as sedimentary soil. These soil are formed in situ. That means it is formed in its original position, right? Wherever the parent rock was there, at that place itself, it started breaking down, and slowly, with the help of thousands of years, it has converted into soil. So this is what is called as residual soil, or it is also called as sedimentary soil. And we have some good examples in India. This includes black soil, red soil, laterite soil, desert soil, and so on. So this picture shows how it happens. So we have parent rock in one place, right? So as the time passes, it breaks down into larger particles. It further breaks into smaller particles, and again breaks into smaller and smaller particles, and finally becomes soil. So in this way, when a parent rock breaks down in its original position and changes into soil, we call that type of soil as residual soil. Now the second type of soil is the transported soil. From the name itself, you will get the meaning, right? Soil formed by the deposition of sediments. Actually, it is sediments. One spelling mistake is there. So sediments are nothing but the tiny particles or the load which is carried by agents of erosion such as river, water, wind, etc. Right? They carry the sediments from one place and deposit it in some other place. In our case, we have the best example here, rivers. Take the case of journey of rivers. Right? They will start flowing from the top of mountains, and on their way, they will erode the rocks and carry the sediments, and it will be finally deposited in the plain areas. So these type of soils which are formed by the deposition of sediments or load is called as transported soil, and the best example that we have is alluvial soil. Now we have the next type of classification based on the origin and formation. There are four different types of soil discussed in the textbook. So let's see the first one, that is alluvial soil. Alluvial soil is a transported soil, right? It is formed by the deposition of sediments, and the sediments which forms alluvial soil are called as alluvium. These are very fine particles carried by rivers from the top of mountains, and they are deposited in the plains. It's called as alluvium. So alluvial soil is rich in certain chemical ingredients, right? This soil is also called as riverine soil because it is mainly found in the basins of rivers. And the soil is actually a mixture of sand, clay, and silt, and together this mixture is called as a loam. Now what is sand, clay, silt, gravel, etc.? Nothing but these are different sized particles, right? If you pick up a handful of soil, you will see particles of different size. Some are comparatively bigger, some are small, some are too tiny that you cannot even see with your naked eyes. So that will come under clay. Then the one which is slightly bigger is silt. The other one which is a little more bigger than silt is called as sand, right? So this we're talking about alluvial soil. So alluvial soil is a mixture of mainly sand, clay, and silt, and that mixture is totally called as loam. Now, alluvial soil occupies almost 40% of India's land area, right? The entire northern India. See the map on the left side. So these are the areas which are covered by alluvial soil, right? So the entire north Indian plain, then the coastal areas as well as the delta areas, right? So here if you see the second map, the green areas, right, that is the entire north Indian plain, and the blue the coastal areas. So this is the distribution of alluvial soil. Moving on, we have classification of alluvial soil also. So based on the age of the soil, we can divide the alluvial soil in two categories. One is Bangar, other one is Kadar. You will see different spelling sometimes. Sometimes you may see small differences in the spelling, right? Sometimes H may not be there, or here after D there can be H, but both are same, right? So Bangar as well as Kadar. These are the two types of alluvial soil. Let's see what are these. Now, Bangar soil. Bangar soil is actually old alluvial soil or old alluvial soil, right? Which are older than other one, right? So this is the classification based on the age. So old alluvial soil is called as Bangar soil. It occupies the largest part of the northern plains. If you take the northern plains, distribution of soil in the northern plains, the majority of the area is occupied by Bangar soil. And this soil is found in the areas which are above the flood levels. That means the areas where flood may not occur, right? The higher areas, the areas which are little away from the main stream or away from the rivers, right? So this soil is mainly found in the areas which are above the flood levels. And another specialty of the soil is this soil is full of conker nodules. These are nothing but lime nodules, lime particles. Right? That means these are not fertile, or these are not that much fertile. Because of the presence of lime, the fertility of the soil is not suitable for cultivation of a large number of crops. Right? So the old alluvial soil is called as Bangar, and the new alluvial soil is called as Kadar soil. These are younger in age comparatively compared to the Bangar soil. This one is younger, and this is found in areas below the flood level. That means the areas where flood may occur every year during the rainy season. That means the areas which are very close to the river. Now, every year here during the rainy season, a new layer of soil is deposited. Whenever there is a flooding situation, right? You must have seen videos and photos where the flooding occurs in the northern plain, and you might have observed the color of the water. Most of the time, it is dark brownish in color. That means it is carrying huge amount of sediments. So these sediments are deposited on the top of the soil every year, right? And the Kadar soil is made up of very fine silt and clay. Right? The soil is very fertile and it is ideal for intensive type of cultivation. So these are the two types of alluvial soil: Bangar soil, old one; Kadar soil is new one. Right? Now, to make it a little more clear, it is the distribution of Kadar and Bangar. This is the North Indian plain, right? You can see the river Ganga, the main river, in the middle, and there is a the picture here on the right side shows shows a cross section along the line NS. N stands for north and S stands for south, as similar your name. So here, if you see the plain area or the areas near to the river, so here we have the river, and Kadar soil or the new soil is found very close to the river, whereas Bangar soil is found away from the river, which are in the higher areas. So in this region, wherever we have Kadar soil, flooding occurs during rainy season, right? So every year new layer of soil is deposited here, and that is why it is fertile, and that occupies comparatively a lesser portion of the entire plain. But majority of the North Indian plain is covered with old alluvial soil. The same thing have made it a little more bigger, right? So this yellow colored area which are very close to the river, are the areas where flooding occurs during rainy season, and this area has the deposition of Kadar soil, that is the new alluvial soil, and Bangar soil is found away from the mainstream of the river, like this. Now the distribution of alluvial soil. We have already seen this. Then what is the difference? Nothing. Again, we can classify it into three different categories, and they are distributed in three different places. So the areas which are shown in red color, right? This area have something called inland alluvium or inland alluvial soil. As the name suggests, they are in the interior parts of the country. Then this yellow color, right? Wherever we have this yellow color, those areas have deltaic alluvium, right? Delta region, and the green color areas have coastal alluvium. Let's see what are the differences between all the three. Now, first one, we'll start with the inland alluvium that is found in the interior part of the country. It's nothing but the soil or the alluvial soil which is found in the interior part of the plain areas. the plains of Indus, starting from the northwestern part of India, like states like Haryana, Punjab, then parts of Rajasthan, right? UP, Bihar, all these states have inland alluvium, right? Then the second one is deltaic alluvium, as the name suggests, delta. So the alluvial soil which is found in the delta region is called as deltaic alluvium. We have deltas in eastern coast of the country. So Sundarban Delta in West Bengal, then in the deltas of Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna and Kaveri also we can see deltaic alluvium. And the remaining areas are covered with coastal alluvium. So this alluvial soil is actually tidal in origin. They are not deposited by the rivers. This soil is actually deposited by the tide over the ocean. So the soil particles from the interior part of the ocean is taken to the coast area and it is deposited. Just like the way rivers do, rivers are carrying the sediments from the top of the mountains, but here the ocean is, or the sea, or the tide is carrying sediments from sea to the land. So this type of alluvial soil is found in the coastal areas, so that is what is called as coastal alluvium. We can see this in the coastal stripes of peninsular India as well as in the parts of Gujarat. So if you see this, the areas which I have marked used in green color has coastal alluvium. Now before we go into the next, this is the entire North Indian plain or the Ganga plain. So you can see the direction of the flow of the river, right, from north to west to southeast, or from north to west to east, we can say in simple. So height is more in this area and it decreases towards eastern side. So the entire Ganga plain can be divided into three different regions: the upper Ganga plain, the middle Ganga plain and lower Ganga plain. So keep this in mind. Now let's see the last topic of the day: characteristics of soil, alluvial soil. The same thing, but this is a summary of whatever we have studied so far. Now these are formed by the deposition of load. Load is nothing but sediments. We have already seen that these are called as these are one of the good examples for transported soil. So alluvial soil is formed by the deposition of sediments. And in the upper course of the river, that means in this area or towards the foothills of the mountains and all, the soil particles are irregular in size. They are comparatively larger and irregular in size. Not only that, they are coarse, they are hard and stiff. Right, this is found in the Piedmont plains or the foothills of mountains. Right, in the upper course of the valley, the soil is much more coarser. But as we go down the valley, soil particles are smaller and more uniform. And in the lower stretches, in the lower part of the Ganga plain, soil is comparatively more. Soil particles are comparatively smaller and uniform in size. Now, another important characteristics. In the upper Ganga valley, soil is dry, porous, sandy in nature and yellowish in color. Not only that, it consists of more amount of clay and organic matter. So usually in this area we don't have any stretch of forest, right? No forest, and therefore we don't have humus content present in the alluvial soil. But in the upper areas which are very close to the mountains, we have something called the Terai region, which was covered with forest earlier. So because of the presence of vegetation in that area, we have organic matter in alluvial soil. But generally soil is dry because moisture content is less. Then they are porous, a lot of spaces are there in between, and not only that, more amount of sand particles are seen than that of silt. Right? So this is the character of soil in the upper part of Ganga valley. Whereas on the opposite side, in the lower part of the Ganga valley, right here again have a look at this. So in the lower Ganga valley, soil is more compact and it is more moist, means it has more water content, and it is less coarse or very fine. Now continuing, this soil is very light and porous in general, therefore it is easy to till or easy to plow. Then it is rich in minerals like potash and lime, and therefore generally soil is very fertile. But the soil is deficient in certain minerals like nitrogen and humus. Right. Only one exception is the Sundarban area. In Sundarban area we have humus content because Sundarban delta is thickly covered with vegetation. Therefore, humus content is found in the deltaic alluvium of the Sundarbans or the Ganga-Brahmaputra delta region. But in all other areas, soil lacks nitrogen as well as humus content. And the soil is generally suitable for cultivation. Alluvial soil is generally suitable for the cultivation of both rabi crops as well as kharif crops. Rabi and kharif are agriculture seasons. So those crops which are cultivated in rabi season is called as rabi crops, and those crops which are cultivated in kharif season is called as kharif season. Kharif is our rainy season and rabi is our winter season. So this soil is suitable for cultivating both rabi and kharif. The most important rabi crop is wheat and kharif crop is rice. And in some parts wherever it is drier areas, in those areas soil is alkaline or the pH content is comparatively high. So these are the characteristics of alluvial soil, right? Now there is one more thing, the major crops cultivated in alluvial soil. Almost all type of soil can be cultivated because it is rich in basic minerals. So the major crops cultivated in alluvial soil are wheat, sugarcane, cotton, rice, tobacco, gram, oilseeds, jute, etc., etc., etc. Right?